state to it. It's not really displaying any information that was requested, or it's just sort of waiting. So.
Yeah, so it's that idea that the server doesn't store or remember the previous operation. So that's why we have to send a new HTTP verb, and that's why we need to send like an action and a method with each request, because the server doesn't remember it. Now there are techniques to remember that. There's like cookies that you can put. Cookies. So when you go to Facebook, if you logged in yesterday, chances are it may just like let you in the door. So there's ways around that, but generally speaking, yeah, the server doesn't inherently remember the last thing that it did.
Right. And then to answer the number of what it states, so there's 7.
Mm-hmm.
Show, index, new, edit, and I think the other 3 are just update, create, delete.
Yeah, perfect. Very nice. So yeah, so as of this morning, we will have accomplished 4 of those.
Right.
So index, show, new, and create. Tomorrow, Colin is going to finish it up with delete, update, and edit.
Right. So from what we were chatting about, so update, create, and delete, it's sort of like new and edit and show, but they are just not rendering anything to the front end. It's all just updates to the back end, right?
Correct. Yeah, edit and new, they're GET requests that contain a form. And then, then update and create are the corresponding methods that we send back to the server to either send that new form data or send that updated form data. So if I wanted to change my email address or something.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. So yeah, Colin will take care of edit, update, and delete tomorrow.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. So Farouk and Jason, which RESTful routes have views associated with them, and what do they all have in common?
We think this was a trick question.
I'm not that smart.
Well, we could only find one thing based on the markdown, the tables there, get to know the code. And it said that get is the only one with a view associated with it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So that's what they all have in. Yeah, that's what they all have in common. They're all GET requests.
Oh, we thought you meant what do all of the views have in common? Well, GET. There's one.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll throw route in there for next time. But that's something I alluded to yesterday, or that I hoped that maybe you guys took away from the lesson. What are the 4 routes that have a view associated with them?
The 4 routes?
Yeah, what do we call those? Yeah.
Is that show, index, new, edit?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what do they all have in common? They're all attached to GET requests.
Yeah.
Yeah. So remember, update, create, and delete have no views associated with them because we're sending stuff back to the server. We're sending information to the server, and we're going to have to use a redirect in those routes. Cool. Very nice.
Good job.
Number 4, Jesse and Kelly. Let me paste that into Slack. So assuming an actor resource and a views actors directory create an index route, the response object will return a view containing data:artists. So I just went ahead and gave you like kind of the data portion there.
So should I just Slack what we had?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So assuming the view actors, so we do like app.get view actors request res and then dot render views actors, and then it has that data inside that.
Cool. This looks that looks awesome, save for one thing, and my apologies if that question was unclear. So as for the view actors, I just meant like we already created a views folder to put our views into. So the route I was going for here was just /actors. So /actors. But I'll take the blame for that one. Maybe that question was a little not entirely clear, but the rest of this looks great. So yes.
So in a render, would you just do actors and not backslash or slash actors? We were a little confused on why there's no slash there.
Sure. So remember the pattern that we've used so far is that we've actually put an app.use piece of code in our server.js that tells the app where to find our views, or actually where to find any CSS files, views, that kind of thing. So generally we'll create a views folder. So Express already knows to look into the views folder. It already knows to look in the views folder for actors. So the way that we've done this is, actually we've seen this two ways. Yeah, you could probably do this just actors/index, for example. So you would put the name of the resource view directory, which would be actors, and then /index, show, new, or edit.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would clean that up just a little bit. Kelly, you want to hit edit real quick? We'll just tidy this up slightly. Maybe into Slack. So let's make that app.get. Let's just make the path /actors. That's our resource. And then the render. So the render we want to go into the actors view folder. And which view would be associated with our index?
Oh, artists?
Well, what would we name that view in actors? So yesterday when we were creating to-dos, what did we name the view that shows all of the to-dos?
To-dos.index? Or no?
It was just index.hbs.
Okay.
Yeah, so any resource we have is going to have those 4 generic names. So if we're creating to-dos, in the to-dos folder, it's going to have an index.hbs, a show.hbs, a new.hbs, and an edit.hbs. And so that's why we need to make sure that we have a corresponding folder that we dump those 4 generic views in. Because if we have like actors and movies and directors, they're all going to have a corresponding index.hbs, for example. And the way that Express knows exactly which index to look for is that we tell it which folder to look inside, which directory.
So then I had a question about that. Where did the artist come up? Like, how did that word get in there?
Oh, yeah. I changed this right before I sent it out because I felt that artists that should be actors.
Oh, okay.
My apologies. I'll update that. I put this together right before class. I was like, we should do like a breakout room review. Yeah, thank you for that. That should be actors in the data. So that's my bad. Thank you for pointing that out. So yeah, that route looks great though. Cool, thank you. So number 5, Pedro and Rachel. So kind of in that same vein, how would we create a new route for our actors? What would that look like?
I'll put it in Slack. I also did the /views in there, so
okay.
I just took that out. I didn't realize that you didn't mean to include that.
That's okay. When you're building Express and Node apps, you're going to see them built several different ways. So you may build the app if it's more complex, like maybe you won't need to use that views beforehand because you'll have separate folders for actors or directors, depending on how many resources you have. So in some apps, maybe you would put the view first, but we just want to, hopefully see this stuff enough that maybe you can have that next level of understanding to maybe look at your folder structure and look at the code that you put into your server.js and, kind of realize what specific path you need to put into your routes to render that view. App.get actors /new. Yeah, that looks really good. So remember with the new, we don't necessarily send a data object, right? Because we're sending an empty form that the user is going to put data into to create a new instance of an actor. So yeah, that looks awesome. Thanks, Rachel. Breakout room number 6, Sanaz and Sean. So what would a form look like to create a new instance of an actor? So if the form, contain. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, sorry. Yeah, we didn't get really far when we were together,
Okay.
but we both have a couple of stabs at
Sure.
it, basically. So let's see here. I'll just throw some of this stuff in the Slack and see if we were on the right track.
Yeah. I'll code one up as well, just so we have it for reference.
So it might have been overkill, most likely. Normally is, because I'm scrambling just to.
That's okay. That was a pretty tricky one. I mean, there was a couple of
good.
steps involved for sure. So
Good to know.
I wasn't picking on you or anything. It was just how the rooms were.
Well,
set.
it felt like it, Mark.
I'm just upset that you shaved your mustache, man. I thought we were doing the Movember thing, but that's cool.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to grow it back out. She's going to have to get over it. So there's a couple of things that
Okay.
was kind of based off of yesterday's.
Yeah, so you're using the to-dos. Yeah, that's excellent. So I'm glad that you used that for reference. Yeah, this is pretty close. So
And then I think I don't know if this other. I have no idea. I really don't know if this other stuff is overkill. I think I'm trying to find what Sanaz had come up with also.
Okay, so as Sean said, we couldn't go too far because we ran out of time. We just figured that we need the form tag inside our HTML, the actor form JS. And then, like we did yesterday, we need a method and we need an action because it's an object. We just couldn't create the whole thing, but we figured that out that we need this form tag and fill it out.
yeah, that's awesome. That's really kind of the key part that I wanted that question to address, was that when you create the form, you do need to put the method in the action.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's awesome. Let me I'm going to put this into Slack, just kind of another version of that form as it pertains to that question. So let me put this into Slack. Let's see. Input type. Yeah, I think this looks okay.
Yeah, I was still in the process of kind of changing details, obviously. So
Yeah, no, that's all good. That was a pretty involved one. So let me put this into Slack. I think this looks good. Yeah, so the form for actors, we would have a method of post. And remember, like the method, it's just how you want to do it. I just like capitalizing that, capitalizing the HTTP verb. That will work if it's a lowercase post. I feel like when you look at information online, you'll see it one way or the other. But we need that method, which is the post, because we're going to create a new actor. And then the action is the route that we're going to hit. So we're going to go to /actors with that post verb. And so our server knows that I'm trying to create a new instance of an actor. Yeah, and then in that example, I just said, let's assume the form has like name and most recent film. So we would have a name field with an input in the name equals name. So that name field on the input tag, remember that that's really, really important. And we're going to see that today when we finish up our create action, because whatever you put in that name field, that's going to be the key. And then what you put into the input box is going to be the value that we send back to the server. And that's what we're going to finish up today. But we need to make sure that that's really precise and it matches what we want to save to our database on the server side. Yeah, and then another label for most recent film and just an input box for that. And then the input type is submit, and I just put a value of add actor, so it would we'd know what that submit button was for. But yeah, that's really great. That looks good. Yeah, I see that you put add films there. It's awesome. Cool. Thanks for that, you guys. And 2 more to go. So module.exports. What is it good for? Okay. So Tom and Zach, explain module.exports and why we use it.
Tom, do you want to do your island example for them?
Sure.
excuse me, yeah, Zach hit it on the head. In Node, each module, you can put you can have different files, and each file is essentially a module. And one of the challenges that we face in Node is that code in this file can't really talk to code in this file. To get around that, what we do is we use module.exports, which is an object which basically, if you put it, which allows you to say, okay, I want these things in this module to be usable in other modules.
Yeah, that's a really good description. Yeah, Zach kind of hit the nail on the head. So it's a way, well, on a basic level, it's a way to dry out our application. So instead of putting all of our code in like server.js, which is going to be, it's going to be unmanageable at some point if we keep dumping code into that file. Like on a basic level, it's just a way to rip out code and try to compartmentalize it. So maybe we put our data information into a separate file, and we use modules.exports to share that file with the rest of our app via an object called module.exports. Maybe we want to put some of our routes. So if we have several different resources, actors, directors, movies, that's going to be a pretty complex app at some point. So maybe we want to put all of the 7 RESTful actions for each resource. Maybe we want to create an actor's route.js file just for the actor routes, and another file just for the movies routes. So again, we can get that code out of our server.js, and the way that we can share it is attaching it to module.exports. And then next week, specifically, when we get into databases, we're going to be creating models that are going to correspond to collections in our database. So we're also going to be creating models and letting the rest of the app know about it via module.exports. So it's a very, very handy pattern that we can use for routes, for data, for models. We're going to be using that a lot next week as we get into project week for sure. That's great. Yeah, thank you for that. And then finally, who do we have? Zarella, JJ, and Richie. So explain require and why we use it.
Okay, I'll do it, I guess. Okay, we use that at the beginning of our main JS file, and it basically what it does is like it loads external modules that need to be there in order of the rest of code to work.
Yeah, that's excellent. So Node uses that require method to pull in external files and libraries and modules. I think I mentioned yesterday, if you go back and look at like the Google Fonts documentation, for example, if you wanted to import a specific font with Google, the way to do that with CSS would be using like an @import type of method. Node just happens to use this thing called require. So that's how we import modules and external code into our main app, third-party code, if you will. Yeah, that's really great work, guys. Any questions about those 8? Any questions about those 8 review questions that we just walked through? Just wanted to kind of hit what we've gone over the past few days there. All right, so let's continue with our coverage from yesterday. Who had their app successfully working right before lunch, meaning that they could render that new view with the form for it to do? Was everyone able to get that rendering? Okay, cool. So what I want you guys to do, if you want to work on the code that you had working yesterday, go ahead and cd into that folder, open it up in Atom, and go ahead and spin up your server to get started. If your app wasn't working and you want to have some starter code, I put some instructions into Slack. So I pushed up my version that I'm going to start, the lesson with presently. So if you want a copy of that, those are the instructions to kind of get up and running with that. So do a git pull upstream master, and then look into that directory. And if you want to make a copy, the app's name is, well, it's pretty lengthy. I'll type it into Slack.
Is this the one we were doing in student labs from yesterday, is what you're talking about?
Yeah, so this should be the same thing, but I just moved it into today's folder just to try to keep the days separated. And this is actually, it's named the solution because this is the one that I'm going to work on today. And so then at the end of today, it'll be fully fleshed out and it'll be there in the instructor examples. But the name of the app for today, it's solution code, read, new, create, and show, because those are the routes that we're going to finish up this morning. I'll put this into Slack. Yeah, so the app name that's in the instructor examples folder, that's kind of the crazy name for what we're going to be working on. And so I'm working on that file directly. So when I'm done with the lesson, I'm just going to git commit it and push it up to your repo. So you'll have a finished version of it. So I'll give you guys a second to go ahead and give me a thumbs up in Slack once you get either your code from yesterday, or if you need some assistance getting this starter code working, please let me know. And then we'll finish up yesterday's lesson. By the way, while you guys are getting up and running with the code, so this afternoon I'm going to give you guys some instructions. We'll put you guys into breakout rooms and get a little bit of practice with what we've done this week. So I was working on it last night just to try to get the markdown together. So I went ahead and pushed up kind of a finished version, not only of what we're doing this morning, but also what you guys are going to add on to this app this afternoon. So we've been dealing with a to-do resource, and this afternoon I'm going to ask you guys to add a recipe resource to this app, and that'll be kind of our lab time. But when I was going through the paces last night and coming up with the markdown, I just went ahead and deployed the app. So I just put the link into Slack, recipe practice app at .herokuapp.com/recipes. But this should pretty much have all the functionality that we're going to finish up this morning. And then it'll have give you kind of a sample of what your code should be doing this afternoon with this afternoon's lab when we add recipes. So if you want to take a look at that. But we'll finish up the to-dos portion here shortly. And then this afternoon, you guys will be adding recipes to it. So it's kind of a starter for our Blue Apron fully deployed Express app that if we're able to do it next week, that'll be kind of our fun time adding a database and such to a Blue Apron app. Okay, got 4 thumbs ups. Okay, so let's take another like 30 seconds or so, and then I'll go ahead and get started with kind of our first steps. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll take a look at where we left off yesterday. So yesterday, right before lunch, the behavior that we should be getting is we were able to render the render the form within our new view for to-dos, which is right here. Make that a little bigger. So the behavior that we should be getting, so if I'm going to add a new to-do, I don't know, wash Diesel, my dog. It's pretty urgent, it's pretty stinky. So if I click add to do, you should be getting this message. So the form, based on the error messages, the form was sent correctly. However, it hit our server, and then our server tells us it can't post to /to-dos. This post /to-dos, if you recall, is coming from right here where we started building our form. So in this opening form tag, when we hit submit, we're going to use the post method, and it's going to go to /to-dos. So the form's doing exactly what we asked it to. It's just that we haven't created the post route in our server.js file to kind of finish up this create process. So let's add a little bit of code just to get this thing working. So I'm going to just add a post route that will send a message back. It's going to send a string back saying that the post route is working. And then we're going to actually look at building an object from that form data. So that'll be our next step. But I want to move, I do everything very deliberately. So I'm going to do this, and then we'll give you guys a minute or two to follow this up as well in your app. So I'm creating a post, an app.post, and this is going to go to the to-dos. And so this is one of the beautiful things about the 7 RESTful resources. So right off the bat, like my app.get and my app.post, they're both going to the same location, right? They're both going to the same route of /to-dos. But the way that Express and Node knows the difference is the combination of the HTTP verb of get and post combined with that route. So that's how we can create, 2 different routes, even though we're going to the same location. So that's kind of the beauty of this RESTful routing convention. So we're going to to-dos, and I'm going to create a function. And I just want to send back a message saying that your route's working correctly. So let's just do a res send and create post route is working correctly. So let me save that. Let's see if that'll be enough code just to kind of get us through that first step. So if I refresh, I should have some form data saved. And if I hit continue, cool. So our message should change. That form information was still kind of caught in the cache. And then when you hit refresh, it should say, do you want to send that form data again? And then we should get this message back. Again, we're not actually getting the stuff from the form yet. We're going to do that next. But just as a first step, I want to create like the skeleton of this app.post route. And I want to make sure that it's actually being hit correctly and such before I start messing with the form data. So it looks like we're in good shape. So take a minute or two and add an app.post route to your server.js, and then we'll move forward and actually grab that data from the form and do something with it. Cool, got 10 thumbs ups. I'll go ahead and put some code into Slack that should get this thing working, just in case you're, still fighting with it. This is also in the README, in the lesson README, if you want access to it. But again, we're just creating kind of the shell for this post route, and we're just sending a message back to our browser, just saying, yeah, this route works. We're about to do something with the form data. We're going to have to go through a couple of steps to actually do something with that data. But as long as you're getting that, some sort of, create a new to-do is working, or some sort of this route is working in your browser, then we should be in good shape. So as long as you're getting something like so, we're exactly where we should be. So let me move forward to receiving these parameters from the form. So we have confirmation that the form is getting sent successfully. It's hitting the post route, which is awesome. So now let's take it a step further. So right now when we hit submit, we can see that the request is received from the server because it sends back that message. So in the request body, in that object, it's actually going to have a parameter, a property called body. And body is going to contain the key value pairs for the input boxes on our form. Now, the one thing that Express doesn't do is that it doesn't handle, it doesn't know how to parse that data inherently. Express itself doesn't know what to do with that form data. So if we console logged the form data, the request.body, actually we would just get an undefined or it doesn't exist. What we're going to have to do is install a second NPM module that will actually do all that heavy lifting for Express. So it's going to take that form data and it's actually going to create that body property on the request object. So we have to install something called body parser. And so this is pretty crucial in any Express app that you're building, any Express and Node app. This is what we're going to need to install to actually do something with that form data that our server is receiving. So let's install this NPM module called body parser. So I'll put this link into Slack if you want to check it out further. If you want to read up on the documentation and stuff, but let's install body parser and then we'll get it configured in our server.js, and then we'll actually be able to do something with our form data. So let me share my screen. This is going to be like 3 steps, and then we'll take a few minutes so you guys can incorporate it into your application. So the first thing I want to do whenever I install a new NPM module is I'm going to npm install it from the command line. So this is where I have my server running, and this is a really good reason that I want to have like 2 tabs open. So I could stop this server and do all this stuff in that window, but I really like having 2 tabs open so I don't have to worry about the server. I can just do all the commands externally. So let's run an npm install, and I'm going to do my -- save because I don't want to like type this in manually into my package.json because I'm lazy. So npm install -- save body -parser. So let's see how many dependencies. Oh, that's not too bad. So it looks like body parser only has 3 dependencies. That's pretty lightweight. That's not too bad. Now, if I go to my package.json just to confirm that it installed correctly, I can see here on my line 12, make that a little larger for you guys, that when I use that -- save flag with npm install, then it went ahead and put body parser in my dependencies object in my package.json. So pretty handy little feature there. All right, cool. So we'll go back to server.js. And so what we need to do first is we need to require body parser. So I'm going to create a variable called body parser, and let's require it as we do with all of our third-party modules and libraries. So we'll require body parser. Cool. And then we're going to use some middleware code. So we're going to get into this in a few minutes, actually see some middleware in action. But let me put this into Slack. Can someone, in their own words, give us the answer to what is middleware. So we talked a little bit about it. We haven't really seen it in action yet. Body parser is a type of middleware, but what does middleware basically do for us? What is its function? What do we need it for? What can we do with it? Zach says it's a bridge. Yeah, that's a really good metaphor, actually. So middleware, see JJ's typing. Hopefully we don't burn the bridge, but intermediator, yeah, that's really good as well. Between database and app. That's kind of in, not really, sorry buddy. We can do stuff with the database and the app using middleware, but kind of on a basic level, middleware just allows us to do stuff between the request object and the response. So again, like that bridge between the request and response, there's a lot that we can do with middleware. So for example, with body parser, we're going to get the object, the body object from that form, and body parser is actually going to turn that into an object that we can save to our database with the key value pairs and such. So there's a lot that we can do in between the request and response, and that's pretty much what middleware does for us. We can add extra functionality. Maybe we want to like validate the data. Maybe we want to do some sort of authentication. So those are the types of things that middleware can do for us. Did someone come off mic? Come on mic, I mean?
I think it's me, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So we npm installed body parser, we required it and assigned it to a variable. So let's tell our server.js, let's tell our Express app that we want to actually use it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use app.use, too many parens there. And we're going to do body.parser specifically, sorry, body parser. Specifically, we're going to grab one of its methods, URL encoded. And then within here, we're going to add one more property. And this is all in the documentation. Body parser has some other configurations, but for what we're using it for, this is kind of the basic way that we need to set this up. So body parser is going to be URL encoded and then extended true. So if you look at their documentation, essentially all this means is that body parser is going to grab that data and it's going to turn it into a nice looking JSON object that our database can use, that our Express app can use and do other things with. We haven't really gone into JSON yet, but we will before this unit is over. But JSON is just a fancy term for a JSON, a JavaScript object literal. It looks very similar. It has some other cool features. We use it a lot with APIs to get third-party data and such. But essentially, that's what this code is doing. It's just going to turn it into a nice JSON object that we can do something with. And then finally, let's actually console log the request body. And let's see what that looks like. So now we should be able to actually use that form data. So down here in my to-dos, I'm going to add console log. And let's check out the request.body. And I'm going to check it out here in the console first and make sure that it's working correctly. So I'm going to go back to my new, load that form up again. We'll wash diesel again, pretty urgent, and we'll hit submit. And so now right here, now that data is in a nice JSON format. So this is the contents of that form. We have the description key with the value of wash diesel. So that was one of our input boxes, text boxes on our form. And then we have urgent is true. So that's one of our radio buttons. But now we can do something with this. Let's take this one step further. let's send the request body as well, just to see how that works. So let's just send it to our browser. Let me refresh this. And there we go. So if you just want to get another view, we're console logging it here in our server logs, server side, and then we're also able to send it back to the client, to our browser. Give me a, actually I'll do that when I come off camera. I have a Chrome extension installed called JSON View. It's a really nice Chrome extension that kind of cleans up this JSON object. I'm guessing that maybe this doesn't look quite as pretty on your browser. So when I come off screen share, I'll slack out the Chrome extension that will just make JSON a little easier to read. But I'm going to assume that maybe it doesn't look quite this formatted on your in your browser. Cool. So I'll go ahead and go off screen share right now, actually. So let's go into our next step, which is go ahead and go through those 3 steps and install Body Parser into your app. And so we'll pause for a second and let you guys do that.
You're on mute.
Hey, sorry about that. Would you mind coming back to the main room? Christine's stuck in this other room, so I'll put you into her room.
All right. All right.
Thanks. All right. If you guys don't mind, give me a thumbs up in Slack once you get body parser installed. So again, the 3 steps were npm install body parser, and then require it and assign it to a variable, and then add this bit of code using app.use. I'll put this into Slack. And then if you want to test it out, you could do a res.send request.body just to make sure it's working. And then we'll do some more stuff with it.
Hey, Mark, I have a question. Yeah. I remember, like, for these things, the order matters, and I was kind of trying to keep like all my things that have to do with the to-do list all together, but I noticed that you have them organized like a little different. Like you have like all your app that use together, and then your get together and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I guess that makes more sense, but would it still work if I would have put my body parser like right underneath or around where I have the to-dos?
Give me
or
one
does it need to be, or does it need to be on the front?
Yeah, just let me finish this Slack message here. So I think you were asking as to the order, the structure of your server.js file. Was that?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me. I'll go ahead and share my screen for a moment. I can talk a little bit about that. So, again, this is just convention. So, a lot of the way this is set up, it has to be in order, particularly with your routes. You guys are going to see during lab time when you guys create a show route, that your show route is going to have to be under your new route. So I don't want to spoil the surprise, but we'll talk a little bit about why, like the order of the routes matter. But the convention with creating a new Express app is, the convention is you want anything that you're declaring a variable for, you kind of want to put that at the top, just so everything will have access to it below. So for example, right here on line 9, I'm declaring this variable app, which is really important because the rest of the code is pretty much app.something. So it makes sense that the app needs to be declared, close to the top of the code so I can actually do stuff with it. So that really matters. And it's just kind of a convention. Generally, you want the middleware kind of toward the top of the code. Now, when we get to more complex apps, we're actually not even going to have the routes in this file, right? So we're going to have separate files for our routes. We may even have separate files that manage the port number, manage like the app.listen, which is down here at the bottom. So as our apps scale up in complexity, we're going to be like making new files to kind of partition out this code. But since we're putting all this in server.js, I'm putting my middleware here at the top. I'm also setting my view engine kind of up here at the top, because down here in my routes, that's where the view engine comes into play, right? So I need to tell Express, when I give it a res.render, it needs to know what engine to parse that information through. So I want to make sure that, for example, I have that app.set view engine, before my routes, just so it knows what to do with my views in these render calls. I happen to have my root route here. I like to have like my basic, root route at the top. I like to have that first because that's like the entry point to my app. And then, yeah, the rest of this, we only have 3 routes, and this is just how I put them in there. But I kind of like to have, both of these go to /to-dos. So I sometimes like to structure my routes by the route that they're hitting. Some folks may want to put all their gets in one spot and then put, post, update, and delete below it. It's really just a preference. But you definitely want your routes like below all of the middleware and the app set. So that's something that's kind of important. Is that helpful?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
And again, the thing about Express as opposed to a framework like Rails, so Rails pretty much, when you spin up a new Rails app, it has everything built out for you. So with Rails, we need to play in the Rails conventions. We need to play by the Rails rules. So everything in Rails is going to be in a specific place. It's going to structure the entire app for us. And it's kind of comforting in a way because we don't have to deal with all that setup. So Rails has a motto called convention over configuration. So with Express, we have to do a lot of configuration, right? We have to do a lot of this by hand because Express is very opinionated. And depending on what developer or what blog post or what tutorial or what book you're reading, there's a lot of different ways to set this up. So there isn't like one perfect way to structure your Express app like there is in Rails, for example. In Rails, there's pretty much like one way to do it. Let's just all agree that this is the best practice and let's adhere to this structure and these conventions. Express is kind of like the Wild West, and it may feel that way, right? Because we can kind of structure this. I mean, just this week, we've seen like probably 2 different ways to name our files, 2 different ways to like structure our code. So Express is a little more unruly in that sense. All right, so we have 8 thumbs ups. Does anyone need assistance with body parser before we move forward?
I'm just not, like, I'm not getting any error messages or anything. Everything looks good, and you can't get my console logs or the buttons to render in the browser.
Okay, why don't you share your screen and we'll take a look. Jesse Pinkman's to-do list.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna do a whole Breaking Bad theme by the time this is done. It's gonna be great. But yeah, everything looks good. I mean, I used pretty much a bunch of your solution stuff.
Okay. So let's so you got a console log request.body res.send. Okay. Let's check your package.json. Let's just make sure that was okay. Body parser's in there. Let's go to in your browser. Let's go to /todos/new. Let's load up your form. Okay, and let's create a new to-do. So go ahead and type some stuff in there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Looks like it's working.
Sweet. Yeah. I guess I might have just been typing in the wrong path.
Yeah.
That's possible. Thanks, dude. Sorry.
Yeah. No sweat. All right, so we have 12 thumbs ups. So let me move on to the next step. And so let's actually push this new to-do onto the to-dos array, and then we'll see our index of to-dos. We should have 3 to-dos at this point. So let's get this bad boy working, and then I'm going to put you guys into some lab time to work on a show route and see if you guys can come up with that one. So using body parser. So we had to install body parser again because Express doesn't know what to do with that form data. And so body parser is going to render, it's going to parse it, as the name suggests, into a nice JSON object that we can do something with. And here, if you look at the screenshot, so it does 3 things. It adds a body property to the request object, which we're already console logging, and we're also sending that back to the browser just to make sure that it's working. It's going to parse the body of the incoming request, i.e. the form data. It's going to add the data as the value of request body. So these are kind of the 3 really important things that body parser is doing for us. So let me walk through adding the post routes, or completing the post route, so that we're actually going to be able to push the to-dos onto our array. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and wire this up, and then we'll take a few minutes and let you guys get it working in your app as well. So kind of the last step for our create action. So we're going to be doing this in post. Let me go ahead and get rid of these 2, my console logs here. I guess I'll keep them in there. I'm just going to comment them out. Cool. Let me ask you guys this. I'm going to put this into Slack, or I'm going to start building it, and then I'm going to ask you guys a question. So the first thing I need to do is I need to create a variable that's going to capture this new to-do information. So the structure of that is going to look like this. I'm going to create a variable called new to-do, and this is going to be a new to-do object. And this is what I'm going to grab the form data, put it into this new to-do variable, and then I'm going to push this new to-do variable onto my to-dos array. So a couple of steps there. But I know that I'm going to get a description back from the form, and I know that I'm going to get an urgent back from the form, right? Because those are our two form fields. And I can also confirm that because if I look in my server logs, I can see the JSON object that body parser is creating for me. And then I can also see in the browser, well, I already went, there it is. And I can also see in the browser that I have a nicely formatted JSON object to work with. So let me ask you guys this question. And if you want to put it into Slack, if you want to play around with it, what do the values need to be for description and for urgent here to get that data from my form and to create this new to-do object? What does the answer need to be right here? So it needs to be something, and then this needs to be something. So what do you guys think the values need to be? Yeah, so it's going to be a string, but specifically, how do I get the value? How do I get, for example, wash diesel into here, and how would I get true into urgent right here? If I'm getting that data from the form server side, how would I do that? Cool, so we're closer. So it's not handlebars. Yeah, JJ's on the right path. Yeah, I think Tom has hit it. So remember that the body parser is going to create a body object on a request object. And so at that point, we can just use dot notation. So yeah, Tom really hit it on the head here. We can do request.body, all C, dot urgent. And so what do you guys think this is going to be to get the description? Well, JJ has it pretty much. We're just going to put a request in front of that. Cool. So this is the beauty of body parser, is that at this point, once it creates that object, we can use dot notation like we were doing in Unit 1, just like any other JavaScript object. So this is capturing our form information and creating a new to-do. And if I want to test this out, let's just do another quick and dirty console log of my new to-do. Let's see what that looks like. Let's just make sure this is working the way we think it should be. So I'm going to create a new to-do here. I don't know, buy bread. Urgent, I don't really care. So we'll hit submit. So this is still hung up because we haven't told it like, response.send anything or response.render, so that's okay. What I really just wanted to check out was here in my server logs that, yeah, I'm still getting that new to-do object. So it looks like my JSON object is still getting received by the server, which is awesome. So I think we're in good shape. Just wanted to test that out before we move forward. So cool, let's take just a minute or two. If you guys want to go ahead and create a new to-do variable in your post route, and then we'll add the code that's going to push that onto our to-dos array. So let's take just a second. Cool, we have 6 thumbs ups. So summer is officially over now, right? It ended at like 10 something Eastern this morning. That's a bummer.
I can tell you it's still super hot here, so I don't know what you're talking about.
How hot is it there?
No idea. Like probably in the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like 89 or 90 here in the A today. And I think, isn't daylight savings time, isn't it like right after Halloween now? So like if you want to go trick-or-treating, you still have some daylight, but I think they moved that, right? So after Halloween a few years back. November 6th time change. Yeah, something like, yeah, that may be like that Sunday after Halloween or something. That sounds accurate. All right, 10 thumbs ups. So we're almost through with our post. Actually, while you guys are working, see if you can come up with some code. How do we push this new to-do onto our to-dos array? So if you get the var new to-do working, you can console log it. Go ahead and see, this is the next thing we're going to do. How would we push this new to-do onto our array of to-dos? So right now we're not dealing with a database. So if we like stopped our server and restarted and such, our data is going to be gone and it's just going to have those 2 to-dos. But in the meantime, whenever we create a new to-do via our form, we can just push it onto our to-dos array to kind of mimic what's going to happen with our database. So what's the line of code that we're going to need to put into our post route to add that new to-do to our to-dos array? And again, the way that you can test that out is if you get that working, you can console log your array of to-dos, whatever that variable is called. Yeah, so JJ, if yours isn't refreshing, that's totally fine. So actually, I anticipate that everyone's browser is not going to refresh. Actually, mine's still spinning. Why do you guys think that is? Why is your browser refreshing right now when you submitted that form?
Because there is no send, no send instruction, so it kept stuck there.
Yeah, so res.send would fix it. But on a higher level, what do we have to do in our post, our update, and our delete routes? What do those 3 routes not have?
Callback.
A view. Thanks, Zach. Yeah, so remember, post, update, and delete don't have a view. So the other thing we're going to have to add is a res.redirect. So even if this code was, actually the code's working just fine, but Express is like, well, all right, I created this new to-do, but I don't know what to do next. So we're going to have to add a redirect as well. Yeah, very nice. So we're basically going to push this new to-do to an array, and then we're going to put res.redirect, and we're going to be done. So if you want to take a stab at the code to push the new to-do onto the array, go ahead and put it in Slack, and then we'll walk through it and finish up our post route. Actually, Zach, you did get the 2 fish and 5 loaves yesterday. I can't believe my Southern Baptist upbringing. I cannot believe that I spaced on that. Ellie's got, let's see what we got. Yeah, that looks nice. Yeah, I put the S on there. Yeah, so I think Kelly wins the prize. So I'm going to share my screen, and let's walk through that. That's very nicely done. So let's add this code to our post route. And if someone's unmuted, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, I'm not sure who that is. So yeah, so right down here after we declare our new to-do variable, we're gonna basically put in what Kelly suggested. So remember that we're grabbing our seeded to-dos from our external file using a module.exports. In module.exports, that file is attached to this variable that we call data up at the top of our file. So yeah, so data.seeded to-dos that's our array. That's our array of to-dos. Just to refresh how that works is we have our data.js file, and here are our seeded to-dos. Here's where they live. And they're attached to our module.exports object. And then in server.js, way up here at the top, we're declaring a data variable and requiring that file. And so now the contents of that module.exports is in the data variable. And pretty much like we did here in the index route, I know that that array is data.seeded to-dos. So at this point, all we need to do is a push, and we're going to push that new to-do onto the array. Very cool. And then let's just see if, we'll just check that out really quickly before we do the redirect. So let me do data.seeded to-dos. Oops, need to do that. All right, so let's just confirm that that is working. So let me refresh my form here. I'll send buy bread. Oops. Buy bread one more time. A lot of bread. Actually, Colin is baking his own sourdough bread today. Very impressive. So then when we submit that form, again, the browser should just be like kind of confused and spinning because we haven't told it what to do after we do the business logic. We haven't told it a res.send or a res.redirect. But I just wanted to make sure that the form and that code that Kelly suggested is working correctly. And it looks like it's working great. So down here where I console logged my data.seeded to-dos, I can see that that to-do that I just submitted is indeed being pushed onto the array. So that's awesome work. All right, so let's finish this thing up. And let's throw that redirect in here and see what that looks like. I'm gonna get rid of that stuff. Cool, so a redirect, we're going to add it to our response object. So redirect is just another method that we have available to us. So when you redirect, you pretty much just tell your Express app what route or what path do I want to go to. So in this case, let's go back and let's check out all of our to-dos. So I'm going to redirect just to my to-dos route, like that. Since it's a redirect, Express knows that this is going to be a get, because we're, it's as if the browser submitted that form and then we're asking like, send us somewhere else. So all that Express is going to do is going to find the HTTP verb get that matches this route, which is our index. So if we refresh here, and let's add one more to do. So go to to-dos/new. We'll buy some more bread. And it's not really urgent. And if we add our to-do, then it's pushed onto the array, our new to-do, and then it'll redirect us to our index page, which again, index shows all of something. And we now have 3 to-dos. And there is our buy some bread, yo, urgent false. So cool. So that's where we want to be right now. So go ahead and add. We'll take a minute and get you guys up to speed. So go ahead and push the to-do onto your array and redirect. And then give me a thumbs up once you get that working. And let me know if you need any code. I'll put those 2 lines of code into Slack for you. And then this code is also in the lesson README, just for reference. Cool. So give me a thumbs up if you get that code working, and you can actually create a new to-do. It sends you to the index, and you can see all 3 of your lovely to-dos. And if you get that working, just to play around with it, like make a change to your file or stop your server and restart it, and you'll notice that you go back to the 2 seeded to-dos. Because remember, we still don't have a database wired up to permanently persist this data. We'll do that next week. So every time that your server restarts, it's going to restart with those 2 seeded to-dos. So if you want to see what that looks like, you can stop your nodemon server.js, or just like put a space in a file and save it, and it should refresh on its own. Let me go ahead and stop my share. Get rid of that space there. Cool. All right, let me know if you have anyone's having any issues. So this is awesome. So we have done our index route, we've done our new route, and we've done our post route. So again, new and post are both required to facilitate the C in CRUD, the create. We need the new route to get the empty form, which we put some data into, send it back to the server via a post, and then we can create a new to-do. So we have done 3 of our 7 RESTful actions, and we're going to go into lab time, and I want you guys to work on the show route. So we'll take maybe 15 minutes, see how far you can get, see if you can create a show route, and then we'll come back and take a look at the finished code. So instead of, I'll put some screenshots into Slack, but it's a pretty big lab time. I think there's like 9 steps that I threw in here. And you're certainly not going to have time to go through all of those. But if you click on the link that I just put into Slack, that'll get you like directly to the lab time section. And then Christine's going to create some breakout rooms for us, and we will take about 15 minutes. And also, if you want to like stretch the legs and take a break, I know we're like 32 minutes to lunchtime. We haven't really taken a break yet. So see how far you can get. And really the gist of the lab, as the instructions state, is just see if you can create that show route for it to do. And I gave you kind of a sample of what that route should look like in step 1. So essentially, this is what the route is going to look like. So your show route is going to want to hit this to-dos /:ID, where :ID is going to equal, in this case, the index of the item in the array that we want to see the specific information for. So a show in our RESTful routing, paradigm, a show page shows the details for one instance of something. So when we click on the show, we want to see the details for one to-do. And then if you want to click on the Heroku app link that I posted earlier in Slack, So that actually has the show route built in if you want to see what that looks like, just to kick the tires. So any questions about lab time? All right, cool. So I'm here if you need me, just ping me up. And Christine, if you want to go ahead and open the rooms. So I'll see you guys in about 15 minutes.